let's start here. Basically, Moment Factory is a new media, art, and entertainment studio. So we design multimedia spaces. You'll see a few projects later, so you'll understand more in detail. But basically, we mix different technologies together and mix different mediums together. And we try to create stuff that stands out and try to touch people in different ways. A while ago, I was doing a conference in New York, and I was like, okay, what should we talk about? It's all about motion design. And then I was like, well, maybe in our studio, the difference with other motion design studio is that we also have industrial designers. We also have lighting designers. We also have directors, stage directors. We have a lot of different disciplines. And then also in our studio, we have like places where there's people on computers, and then we have places where people are screwing stuff and working with wood to do prototypes, and then people with racks and wires and technology. So there's this multiplication that I call it. It's basically when you put different things together, is like 2 plus 2 is not the same as 2 times 2 in a certain sense. So if you put a lighting designer and a graphic designer together, you'll get a different result than if you put 2 of the same together. So basically, this is a little bit of our studio and a bunch of the different types of people that work with us. And this is also our studio, so, you know, black box and just different ways of doing stuff and experimenting. It's not always super clear also of how we end up with the result, because we don't really know in advance. We kind of have to sometimes reinvent the process and reinvent the wheel because our projects vary so much. So probably a lot of people that work in design live that, but you know, our machine is not in the same sense as always doing branding work, for example. We also mix up multi-platform, which we kind of mix up different stuff. I guess you guys can read, so you can check it out. But basically, like technologies and emotions. So we use technology, but we don't really see usually the technology that we use. We kind of hide it, and it becomes more about the magic that the technology brings to the installation. And then we do it in public, and is our new kind of branding. We brought it out last year, and because we realized also that what differentiates our work. You know, we could be doing also stuff on iPhones or stuff on the web and stuff in print, but basically we do stuff in public spaces. So there's more than one person using it. It's public spaces to a certain sense, but it's group experiences. Rock shows or theater shows or museums or universal expos or the Olympics or bars or all kinds of stuff. Here's a project that we did with a band called 9 Inch Nails. Just bring the volume down here. A year or 2 ago. It's basically, we designed technology that basically creates interactivity between, in this case, the performers, the band, that are kind of becoming the joystick, and the screens are kind of like the TV, the stage. So we affect the lighting, the video content. Here there's like 2 different types of screens. There's these transparent LED screens. And basically we have different content. And as the show evolves, the band interacts. So it's either the music that creates the visual effects. Like in this case here is basically, we're synchronized on the sound. So the sound generates the video content in this scene as well. So each instrument has generates a certain image behind them, and as they're playing. So in this song, they're playing really like jazz. They can play for a very long time, and it's always kind of different. So basically, our system is made to apply for these types of environments, but also for multiple types of environments. We're doing right now casinos. We're doing public spaces with this same system. For here example, it's a sequencer where the drummer comes on, and it's like a big touchscreen somehow, and basically it's synchronized with the MIDI system that activates the music, and it basically becomes a musical instrument. So the stage is then a musical instrument for this part of the show. These are also like arena shows, so there's maybe 15 to 20,000 people generally doing them. Here basically we're tracking the position of the lead singer, Trent, And as he comes closer to the screen opens up. You can't see very well here, but you can see him better. And the light comes on, so we can see him through the screen. So as the video noise is in front of it, you don't see him, and as he comes closer, it reveals him. And then we add gravity to our system. So it's a little bit like a video game in the sense, but then we add gravity to it, so the pixels come down or the pixels come up on cue. And the band can also activate the different cues for different songs. Basically, this is another project, but in this one we didn't create the interactivity, but what's interesting also is to have such a big variety of projects. On this project, we were releasing, in association with Cirque du Soleil, we were releasing the new Kinect console for Microsoft at the E3 last spring. And basically there's this big arena, and we designed this show with Cirque where it's all like a lot of video content. And then to something also like weddings for princesses in Qatar and stuff like that. So this is a client of ours, it's called Preston Bailey, and he designs big weddings. And so this is another kind of, so there's like a big spectrum of type of work. This is a DJ that we did his tour recently, so it's all about the video content because they were touring on more of a DJ tour, so it doesn't have a big, they're doing big arenas, but they don't have a big system coming with them. So we focused really on the video content, and we made music videos, and we had a system that was synchronizing his music with the videos behind. So it's as if basically the singers were there with him in his remixed album. So these are some of the music videos that we shot. And it's basically semi-music video, semi-live video, because we feel a lot of the DJ shows are very impersonal and kind of cold. So we wanted to bring some human elements to them. This is an interactive system that we did for the Shanghai Expo for the Canadian Pavilion there. It's basically a big water basin, maybe 20 meters long, so it's quite big, and it has water on it. And then we did an interactive system where we create these particles as people would put their hands in the water, and it activates different visual effects in the water. And this is the other subject that goes on another level. Basically urban spaces and how, urban spaces are old, probably as old as humankind. But the more humanity is getting technology, and the more we're feeling basically the globalization, the more I feel we need public spaces, in the sense that we need a place where people can gather, because we can access everything everywhere, but we get far away from our neighbors or from our family or from our friends because we talk to them enough on Facebook. So I feel like the public space is becoming more and more relevant. And then the technologization of the world, it's a world that I kind of invented there. It's basically very practical. It makes a lot of things much more efficient. It makes a lot more information come around, and there's a lot of positive sides of technology. But also there's the sides of always everything's faster and faster, and we don't have time to just stop, and we don't have time to enjoy our environment so much. And I think well-designed public spaces and well-designed urban environments enhance our daily life. And it doesn't just mean in efficiency, it also means about making it more beautiful and making it more magical and getting people to participate. I felt that because we're in Chicago, it kind of makes sense. There's this space that I haven't seen, but I've heard of a lot, this Millennium Park here, that seems to be kind of a proof of concept of like basically intelligent public spaces where there's basically, a big art installation that everyone likes and talks about, and that it becomes a little bit like the postcard of Chicago. And then there's these fountains that seem to be very interesting. And also a stage where basically it facilitates, with the infrastructure, it facilitates access to events and shows where people can gather. So basically, you know, in a certain sense, our lives are going so much faster, and at certain points it's becoming less personal, and we're getting more knowledgeable about the cultures in Africa and in India, but we're getting to lose a little bit the cultures of our neighborhood. And I think it's interesting to kind of put some thought into that and to put some energy into that, and that I like that cities like Chicago actually invest and make it happen, because it can seem like a nice project after it's done, but I can only understand the complexity of making these things happen in the public world and in the private sectors, and how everything mixes to manage these types of environments. City beautification is something that basically cities are realizing that, you know, Chicago as an example again, if their city is more beautiful, and if they have these kinds of districts that are more branded, and if they have parks that become emblems of the city, it's a little bit like branding the city again. You know, it's a little bit like creating new postcards and creating a destination. So it's something that a lot of cities have been getting into, and it's something that we think is important. And in the end, it's about bringing people together somehow. So if there's an excuse that people say, oh, let's go to the park tonight, there's this concert, and then they see this great concert or this magical surprise that they weren't expecting, maybe they connect with someone right beside them, even if it's just a smile, or even if it's just recognizing a neighbor or an old friend. It still creates links between people that are not through a screen, which I think is a good thing. This is a show we did in Montreal. There's a place called Quartier des Spectacles. It's kind of like a district, an entertainment district, where they use lighting as wayfinding, and they're rebranding this whole entertainment district. And they designed the public space there. It's used for like the jazz festival and stuff like that. And off festivals, there's fountains. So we designed a show in there, which is basically the story between a pixel, so these are the pixels, and a water drop. It's kind of like a love story between both. It's not meant to be, it's a very abstract, metaphorical thing, you know. People that go see the show, they don't understand it, but it's our way of creating, and it's our way of kind of like lining up our thoughts when we have to take decisions creatively. And it's kind of a funny little story. But you feel it. When you know about it, you feel a little bit that. So there's kind of like also, it's kind of like a rainbow that's dancing to the music, this show, and it's very vaporous because of all these waters and the fountains and the light, and it's the base of the rainbow. And there's like this here, there's like hidden treasures, and I call them. So if you walk around the show, you can discover different things, and you can experience it differently from different angles because it's such a big place. And telling stories, a lot of people were talking about telling stories, and for me it touches me very much. It's, a lot of people were saying it's the oldest thing, and about Disney also, about just looking at one funny image and you already have a story in your mind. And it kind of brings people into imaginary worlds, and they imagine stuff. So it's like when you tell someone, oh, this show is about a pixel and a water drop, and then they see the show, well, they have their own interpretation of it because there's no pixel and there's no water drop, you know? It's just they imagine it, and in the music is like if the pixel was talking and if the sound were talking together with the water. So it kind of opens the imagination of people. And this is a show we did, which basically is a place called La Place des Frères Lumière. It's basically in Lyon, in France. And les Frères Lumière are the people that commercialized cinema. So we designed a show based on the Frères Lumière, based on the evolution of cinema, and also based on this dancer called Louis Fuller, which is this district in Lyon is also very much of a dance district. There's many dance companies in this area. So we mixed also the dance and the cinema. And Louis Fuller is the first woman that was doing stage show, and she's from Paris. And basically, she's the first person in theater to use electrical lighting. So she had this big dress, and she would light it up from underneath the dress so it would glow, and she would have this big dress that would turn, and it would kind of like Sufi dancers a little bit, but with a lot of volume. So basically we designed this show here. We had this images floating in the sky. We have this big net that basically is hanging between the cranes, and basically this is basically live images of the show. So we used a lot also of local dancers in the show, where we basically worked from distance with these local people. As much as we can when we go abroad and we work somewhere, we can include the local people, the local artists, the local culture we do. It just brings this other level of richness. The magic of having this image happening in the sky where no one knew how that image can come. So there's this kind of magic behind it. And then creating a destination. So, you know, again, with Chicago as a kind of an example, where I think, I mean, some people that I know came to Chicago because they wanted to come and check the architecture and come in and look at the sites. So I think the more and more people are interested in art and interested in visiting places for culture. And this is a show that we did in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, and this is the Canadian Parliament. So it's a show that basically talks about Canada. It's Canadian people talking about Canada. So we crossed Canada, filming a bunch of Canadians everywhere throughout Canada, interviewing them, and we created the show a lot with their interviews. But you know, when we were working on a building, the type of entertainment is very different. We're using a lot of lighting, we're using surround sound systems, and people aren't expecting to sit down and watch a documentary. Also, the light on the building reacts much differently. So this building has windows everywhere, so you can't see much when the light hits the windows. It just bounces back. So there's a lot of twists that you need to take to create this. Also, because you're working on the Parliament, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. You know, it's like, these guys are trying to brainwash me. Who's talking to me? Is the government? So, you know, in the end, it's us kind of making this show, you know. But people's minds, they think it's the government. Also, it's a bilingual show because Canada's a bilingual country. So it's kind of like double complex because you have to fit in twice as many people talking about the same thing enough so that you still understand and all that with like historians and the history of Canada. But anyways, here's a few clips of the show. Basically, it lasts, we set it up every night, all summer for 5 years. It plays all summer, every night. It's a little bit dark because of the way it was shot. We just finished it a few weeks ago, and it starts again next summer.
The beauty of Canadian identity is that it's not tied to ethnicity.
So it's also about being authentic and at the same time being true to Canada.
One determination.
I am Canadian. Je suis Canadien.
So, yeah, that was quite a complex show. It becomes very complex to make these. So the idea of also these urban places being theater, and I'm coming again a lot thinking, okay, of Millennium Park, because I think that there's a lot to do there, and especially if there's an infrastructure that allows it to be evolving, and it's almost like it's creating, it's alive by itself. And there's ways of creating a little bit like a theater. The next play comes in, but the setup is made to take people, to take places. And like there's a theater in Millennium Park, but also to have shows like architectural projection or fountain shows or stuff that's really like a base entertainment that you can curate different artists. So it's how we can create infrastructure that is basically permanent infrastructure where you can have the sound, the lighting, and a console and everything set up so that it doesn't become very expensive to operate, and it doesn't become very expensive to curate new artists and get local artists involved and get international artists to come inspire the local artists and create these exchanges within the community. So there's the people that come and meet there, but there's also the people that come and participate, so it becomes their own. I think there's a lot to do with kind of public spaces and give them a life and getting people involved to participate in them. I guess my time's up for a while now, so I should stop. Thank you very much.